me out, my long lost friend. Tell me all that could have been. And if I start to lose myself, a secret I could never tell. Oh, meet me down by the coast. I'll be waiting there for you until the ocean tides rise and swallow the sky. I'll be waiting there for you. If I get lost among the trees, could they keep me company? When the morning light grows still, come the night I'll find you then. Oh, meet me down by the coast. I'll be waiting there for you until the ocean tides rise and swallow the sky. I'll be waiting there for you. On the beach you lay and watch the stars dance upon the bay, and asked the lovely night if she could stay. Oh, meet me down by the coast. I'll be waiting there for you. Lying awake with the sound of an emptiness you left behind. Trying to sleep but the silence is haunting this room every night. Oh, I wish the sun would rise and see the clouds pass by. I didn't want to say goodbye to you, but you're gone. I don't wanna close my eyes. It feels like I'm falling down, falling down. Oh, why won't they go away? Pictures of you in my head. The way you left broke my heart. I'm breathing the air of this morning, but it's not the same without you. Wearing the t-shirt you left, but it no longer smells like you do. I can't stand to feel this way. My body's screaming out your name. I didn't want to say goodbye to you, but you're gone.